Through the Leadership Lens is brought to you by Thompson Autogas. Thompson Autogas is the industry's gold standard turnkey solution for all your autogas needs. From funding to refueling and everything in between, Thompson Autogas is there to support your fleet every step of the way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Through the Leadership Lens, a podcast presented by the Women in Propane Council. I am Freddie Riddler.
And I'm Bridget Kidd, and we're so excited that today we have Allison Abbott, who is the Communications Director for the World Liquid Gas Association out of Europe. But importantly and notably, Allison is also the co-founder of the Women in LPG network, which is similar to the Women in Propane Council in the United States. So welcome, Allison. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. It's great to see you. Bridget, I've known you for many years, and Freddie, we're getting to know each other, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're thrilled that you could be here. To kick us off, Allison, would you talk from your perspective even in your career, what does leadership mean to you?
I think that's such a strong question because I was thinking about it, given the title of this podcast, and I think leadership is a combination of many attributes. You have to respect your teams. You have to listen to them. You have to be trustworthy and show yourself to be trustworthy. And you have to take accountability and be confident, because nobody wants a leader who's not confident. But for me, I think the most important thing is we shouldn't micromanage our teams. We should give them rein. I think that is so important. Your teams need to have that ability to think, I own this project, I own this task. And if they make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. In fact, sometimes you have to make a little, unless you're a heart surgeon or something, you have to make a little mistake because you learn from it. And I don't like the idea of, following people up every 5 minutes. Have you done that? Have you done that? I think you give clear communicated instructions. I'd like this done by then. Thank you very much. And then you let them run. And I hope you would get more out of your team members by giving them those wings and that scope, because you don't want them to stay at a certain level. You want them to grow as well.
Mm-hmm. Allison, when you are talking about a true leader doesn't have to micromanage, that you want to build up this team, you want to give them the confidence that they know that you're trusting them and their decisions they're making. We all run across people, though, that are not very confident to make those own decisions. So maybe you could share us a story of a time that you had to say, no, I really want you to take this. I really want you to contribute, and I trust you.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I won't talk about recent experiences, but I think in the past I've had things like, it's been when I worked in exhibition building, and I would give my team the project of managing the visuals. And I had a young lady from Thailand, actually, and she was a very, very good designer, a far better graphic designer than I could ever be. But she always wanted to run everything by me at every stage. And I just gave her I sat down with her and I said, this is your métier. You are the designer and you have the eye. You go with it. I'll look at it halfway through and we'll just check that it aligns with the client's, specs. And she, of course, did a brilliant job because she had that rein to let her creative juices flow. And that's so important, because often members of your team don't have the skill set that we have. That's why you have them in your team. You have people who are designers, people who are creators, people who are wordsmiths, and you have to let them show that that's why they're in the team.
So, Allison, I'm curious how your perspective on leadership and empowering individual team members has changed throughout your career.
I think it's changed massively, and that's because of my own personal development. I think when I first started, you almost pussyfoot around a little bit. You don't want to put your head above the parapet. You are a little bit, as a woman as well, we maybe don't want to put our voice to be heard. Yet as you get older and more confident in your ability and your knowledge, I think you can say, actually, we'll do it this way. Let's do it this way because we know that it works. So I think that as my confidence has grown, I've hopefully become a more consistent manager or leader, if you like, because you have your own personal knowledge and strength that you are the best in your group for doing this. So, and I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is extremely important, and it does change throughout time, and the different roles that you have, and you constantly have to adapt to these changes. And as you hire more and more staff, and the generational switch, the generational swing comes into play, we kind of have to change how we do our leadership. And what are some of the attributes that you bring to the leadership team as your group? Like, how are you? What type of processes do you put in place for yourself to make sure that you're aware of these changes to how you contribute as a leader?
Well, first of all, I think calling myself a leader is, I'm not sure if you hope that you would be, but we're a really small team. And we're a really small team who know each other very well. Now, that's a great thing to have, but it's also, we have to bear that in mind because it's a little bit like your family. And I think it's very easy that you know people too well that you forget that they're on their career path as well. And I don't have, the WLGA is a very small group of people, but I think it comes with having, I think it's the confidence, as I've already said, that comes with having 13 years of experience in this amazing industry, that people know who we are, they trust us. And I think that enables us to say, this year we want to achieve this. And how I work through is I have an excellent relationship with my fantastic team, and I listen to them. And that is so important because if they're younger than I am, which they are, they've got different ways of dealing with things that we think are really cool and modern. They're going, oh no.
So one of the things that we talk about on the podcast a lot is taking risks. And that's a little bit of a theme that we've been discussing already. But you, as we mentioned, are the co-founder of a global Women in Propane, Women in LPG network. And I would imagine, having been in that position of ideating and creating this, that was a big risk. Will you talk a little bit about the organization? Of course, we would love to hear about that, but also about kind of the inception and maybe how you were feeling in that process.
Yeah, we launched Women in LPG in 2015 because I think we have an amazing role within the World Liquid Gas Association, and we're very privileged. We get to visit a lot of places, and I would go and speak at events, and I would literally be the only woman in some of our meetings. And we thought, right, we need to do something about this. And as the global body for the industry, then I think we're well placed. So Nikki Brown, who I know you know, and I sat down, and we took quite a long time working out how we would launch this and what it would look like, because we were entrusted by our leadership to do this. So it took us about a year to do our due diligence to set this up, because we wanted to set it up so that it worked. But you're talking about taking risks. And in fact, when we first set it up, we got the messaging a little off kilter. And we recognized that because we were launching this at an event in Manchester in the UK. And I know that we had people coming up to us and they're saying, well, I'm not sure about this. And we looked back and we said, I think we've got the messaging wrong. So we huddled back and we completely changed it, because I think we were doing it, we were just doing it on our own. And I think the perception was we were alienating perhaps our male colleagues. And that's so important that we don't do that. So we changed it and we made it more of a business. And I think now we've got the support of pretty much everyone that we speak with. And it's fantastic. It's just something that has grown and grown. We've grown from 0 women, 0 members to around 4,000 members, including women in propane. And we have 14 national chapters. We were in Tanzania last week launching our 14th national chapter. And I think those risks have paid off because we've had to build that sense of trust and acceptance that this is a network that's needed.
Allison, as you were saying that, I was thinking back to you describing yourself as a leader and allowing people to make mistakes and that we learn from those mistakes. And in telling that story, it's so important, I think, as a leader to take feedback. And you guys could have taken that feedback and felt discouraged and gone home and said, okay, well, it didn't work. So we're going to pack it up and move on to the next thing. But you didn't. You stuck with it. You received the feedback. You modified the plans and have grown in an incredible way. I wonder, have you been in situations like that before, or did you have a leader who you experienced kind of that similar frustration probably?
I think we've all had, I've had jobs before when I think we've all had experience with leaders who we don't see where they're coming from and we can't quite see what they're trying to achieve. But I've been really lucky and I've had some incredible female leaders who I think about. There was one lady called Isabel, and if she ever watches this, she's great. And for many years, my mantra was, what would Isabel do? Because she took a lot of knocks on the head and she changed how she led her team. Very strong lady. And I think that once you've got someone who gets it right, if you have that what would Isabel do little note in the back of your head, if you're not sure, then it makes you sit back and think, okay, I need to take a step back and think about this because I'm not frightened of making a mistake, but I want to do the best that I can do on that day. And if somebody says, I don't agree with that, you listen to why not. And sometimes they're right.
Yeah. And that's great. And I'm gonna circle back because when you're talking about the alienating the men as a male on this podcast as a host, when I first heard about women in propane here in the United States, I didn't really think of it that way. I was just like, I think it's great giving women opportunity to grow. But what I see that comes out of it is the Women in Propane Council in the United States is reaching out to the marketers, the CSRs, the drivers, the service techs, the operation managers, the CEOs, the CFOs, the CTOs, and all these women in the industry. And it's so incredible to give them a resource to go to for webinars and these types of podcasts to say it's okay to stand up and say, I have great decision skills. I have great leadership skills. I can make risky decisions. And I see it growing every single year. And it's so exciting to be part of this opportunity. And then I also want to talk a little bit about, you talked about you started 14, what'd you call it? 4 chapters?
National chapters, yeah.
So tell us in a short version, what does that entail on the 15th chapter? Like how much work does this take to get another chapter started in the world side?
It's pretty straightforward. And what we do is we recognize that from us here, we're based in France. We can't manage what happens in all these different countries. So we launch national chapters so that there is a small team who will then decide what is needed in that country. So what happens in Nigeria or where we just were in Tanzania is probably very different to what Women in Propane do. And that allows them to have ownership of this national chapter. So we know that in Tanzania, we want to focus on education, for example. And I know I was at the launch of Women in Propane in 2012 in Atlanta, and it was a fantastic event. And I go every year to be part of it because Women in Propane is officially one of our chapters, which is fantastic. So it's really, we give them the autonomy. We go back to that word about autonomy. So we will go to the national chapter launch. We have a half day of training and it's pretty easy to set up. We just need the support of them to invite 40, 50, 60 women to this half-day meeting.
Allison, is there a chapter that really sticks out to you that was like a challenge and you guys overcame it and it's so vibrant now?
They're all like your little kids. Every chapter is, so precious. I think the very first chapter that we launched was in Colombia. So we were a bit new to it and we didn't speak Spanish. So we had an interpreter and we had just 16 women in that room. And it was their first opportunity that they'd ever had to speak with each other. They didn't know each other. And these were, like you were saying, Bridget, they were truck drivers. They were women who owned their own business in a challenging geography. And at the end, they just came out and said, we've never had that space before. And that's why I think that Colombia will always be a little a chouchou, as we say in France. And now it's so well run and they have a great panel in place. And we contact them regularly. And I think it's because probably it was their first one, but we love them all.
Great answer. So I got a question. You're Allison. You're starting all these chapters, and I'm guessing that they still need help along the way. It's probably not just set up and say you're good. Do you guys have like some type of like a mentorship program, or do you have someone that kind of follows and watches each chapter, making sure the excitement, the motivation still continues to roll?
That is so important. And that's where we've seen that we have challenges. So we need to make sure that those plates are kept spinning. So what we do is we have twice a year a big online meeting where all the national chapter leaders get together. And then in those that we've recently set up, we will have a follow-up call with them, make sure that they're on the road, that they know what they want to achieve, and we help them. But you're absolutely right. It is important that we offer them support because we can't be there all the time. We can't physically be there. But we aim to, most of the years, we do aim to visit quite a few of them.
Allison, when we talk about mentorship and kind of ongoing relationships with those chapters, there's a similarity to your own professional development, right? And your own leadership development. You can't just check the box, I'm a leader, and now I'm done. How do you hone your skills? Like, what resources do you leverage?
I follow a lot of women beyond the industry. I think Instagram is fantastic, and I can see where you can get ideas from women who are maybe in external industries who offer those things that you might not normally do. For example, you always want to be a better public speaker. That's something that is so important. So it's honing those skills. It's not always easy to take that backward step and look at yourself. So I have had mentors in the past, and we would like to offer mentorship for women in LPG. We're going to look at how we could do that next year in 2025. But one would hope that through reading, through staying alert, you think, oh, maybe I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here, and I'm going to talk about like inspiration. I love this question because like inspiration comes to us from all different angles. Like my family, even like these podcasts, they just kind of like recharge me a little bit. What inspires you? What inspired you and Nikki to continue to just keep this moving, keep the motivation going, keep the story, keep telling your story, right? In the US, we always talk about share the propane story. What inspires you to keep doing this?
Every time we are privileged to go to one of these launches, you meet a whole new set of women, some we already know, who have insane stories. They are all amazing women in their own right, and they have all this to share. And how can you not be inspired when you're meeting women from all over the world who are so keen to tell their story? Whether there's a language barrier or not, they are there, and you can see it sort of coming out of every pore. They are proud women often, and we need to make sure that we support that.
So, Allison, when you look at where you're at today and where the industry really is at globally with women in LPG, what are you mentioned mentorship as a goal, but what do you see as a goal? What's the next goal? Certainly starting more chapters, but is there something that's below the surface that you're thinking we can do this next thing?
I think the ultimate goal would be when it's automatic that when we walk into a room, there's an equity, there's a balance between men and women. That would mean that we would like to think that we've had some success here, that we don't have to remind people to have gender balance when we're looking at panels at conferences. We don't need to think, oh, hang on, we've only got men on this panel, because you do need women. Has to be the right woman. We can't just put a woman there because it's a girl. And the day that it's happening, I see it happening when I go to conferences now, but it should be automatic. And that will show that it's gone in people's psyche that having women in business is good for business. It's not just a nice to have. There are proven statistics that show that having a woman at any level alters the impact, alters the way that people react with each other.
I think that's an incredible goal to have, and it's a nice visual reminder of success too.
Mm-hmm. So, Allison, for all the viewers watching, or if they're listening to this through just audio, if they're listening right now saying, I have some of those skills that Allison is talking about, how do I move forward with me saying I want to be involved in more of the women in propane, whether it's inside the US or the women in LPG, if they're not in the US? What advice would you tell these listeners or viewers right now how to be more involved?
The very first thing I would say is, do you have a national chapter? Obviously, in the US, we have amazing women in propane. If you don't have a national chapter, is that an opportunity for us? Because do you have women in your company who feel the same? And then to get in touch with us and discuss, because we're open and we want to listen, and we don't want any women to be left behind in this.
All right, so I think it's time for the whip round, Bridget. Let's have some fun with this. Allison, we're just going to fire off some questions to you. Just answer the first thing that comes to your mind. There's no wrong answer. It's a lot of fun to kind of end this podcast. So, Bridget, I'm going to kick it over to you to start the first question.
Great. Allison, what is the best advice you ever received?
I think we're lucky that we receive lots of really good advices, but a long time ago, my father said to me when he was letting me go on, because he lived overseas and he was letting me come with him, and I was very honored. And but he said, but expect the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. And I think, that was a fantastic piece of advice from him.
Always be on your guard.
I'm going to jot that down. That down.
Oh, expect the unexpected. So, Allison, if you could describe yourself in one word, what would that one word be?
That's really a tricky one. Let's go for tenacious, because I think that we have to be to succeed in a good way, of course.
Sure. Okay, enough about work for a minute. What is your ideal vacation?
Because, we're traveling such a lot for work, and we're very lucky in Europe. I'm going to make you all feel really envious now, because we get a lot of holiday, as you know. So my ideal vacation is to spend 3 weeks just at home and looking after the house and the gardens and everything, and being at home, because it's rare that you have that downtime. And that I try and do in August. We're very lucky we can take most of August off. So, and failing that, a really hot beach in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Perfect.
I love it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, Allison, if you could go back to your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give to that person?
I would say listen to other people and be patient. It's very easy when you're 16 and you want it all now. And I think that would, but it's hard to accept that when you're 16, you think you know it all. but it would be, listen to what others have to say, because you could very well learn something.
And expect the unexpected.
Yeah, and always look
I
after
like
your
it.
teeth.
That's a great one. All right, my last question is a new question.
Yeah.
First time question. What is the last gift you've given?
The last gift I gave, oh gosh, let me think. Hold on, sorry, I just have to think what the last thing I gave was. A good friend of mine had a little baby, and I knit in my spare time, and I
Oh my
knit
gosh!
this
Wow.
really sweet little layette, like a little jacket. It was all lace and everything. It took me ages, and all blue because it was a little boy, and she was so sweet about it, and she sent me a photo of him wearing it and everything. So that was the last gift that I gave, and yeah.
That's fun. That's awesome. I just have one last question as well. If you like ice cream, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Do you know, I don't like ice cream.
That's
I
why I say it.
I just don't like it. I wish I'm glad I don't, but I don't really like milky things. Sorry, I just ruined your last question.
No, you didn't. That's all right. That's why I said if you like ice cream.
Yeah,
So you know what? We were prepared. That was fun. Allison, it's
exactly.
been a
That was
great
great.
time. Thank you so much for joining this podcast.
Thank
Oh,
you, Allison.
thanks,
It's nice to
Freddie,
see you.
and
Good
thanks,
to
Yes.
spend
Bridget.
some time.
Yeah, lovely to see you. Thanks for all you do. These podcasts are great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of Through the Leadership Lens presented by Women in Propane. Be sure to subscribe, download, and share with a friend. To learn more about Women in Propane, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or online at www.womeninpropane.org. I'm Freddie Riddler.
And I'm Bridget Kidd. Thanks for listening. Until next time.